Hi guys, you're about to watch the free podcast of the Young Turks, fun for everybody. Now, you understand that there's only two of our segments. We do a live 2-hour show every day, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern.
And if you want to hear the entire show, all you have to do is become a member. Sign up by going to TYT-11.18.14.
You can go under member options to become a member, and when you do that, it's totally convenient. You can either stream or download the show, audio or video. Plus, you get more of our network shows. There's no ads whatsoever, and you help support the show. So, TYT-network.com. We'll see you there. All right, back on the Young Turks. So, I'm going to rage for a little longer, and then at the end of this hour, we will lighten it up. I'll give you a fun story about what an ass the leader of Turkey is. So that'll be fun. But now, more anger, this time directed at Democrats. Looked like I was doing magic there with my nose, and that's why the sidebar appeared. Okay, anyways. So now President Obama promised Latino activists that right after the election, he would take executive action to stop deportations and to do some relief there on that issue. Now, he had said he was going to do it before the elections, but right before the elections, he changed his mind and said, well, I've been convinced by some Democrats that I should wait because it's going to hurt their chances. They're running in red states, and the Republicans are saying that they're for amnesty. Now, after they waited, did the Republicans let up and go, oh, no, it turns out the Democrats are not for amnesty? Of course not. They ran the same exact ads, so it didn't help at all, not one scintilla. Now the election's over. It's okay. President Obama clearly promised he would do it right after the election and before the end of the year. So what's happening now? Senate Democrats are telling him, wait, don't do it yet. Not yet. Now, we don't know whether President Obama is going to listen to them. That's an entirely separate issue. But first, we start with Harry Reid, the leader of the Democrats in the Senate. Reid said last week that Obama should hold off until Congress passes a bipartisan omnibus spending bill negotiated by the Senate and House Appropriations Committee. Now, he said this in the beginning because the Republicans said, oh, yeah, we're not going to let the budget pass without perhaps forcing a showdown that would force the government to shut down entirely, okay? So what did the Democrats do when the Republicans yell boo? They get scared. Now, the last time a government shutdown happened, it actually helped Democrats politically. Now, have they learned that lesson? No, they don't learn any lesson. They go, oh my God, they're going to shut down the government. Let's immediately give in to their demands. Now, apparently Harry Reid was talked out of that at some point. He backpedaled and said, oh, no, I think the president can do it now. But then mysteriously, anonymous quotes started arising in the papers, including The Hill. A senior Democratic aide said, there are some members who hope the president waits until the government funding debate concludes in order to increase the chances Congress can pass an omnibus that funds the government at the appropriate levels through the fiscal year, as opposed to the Republican plan to pass a short-term CR, that's a continuing resolution, that sets up brinksmanship early next year. In other words, we're so scared that the Republicans are going to take action, and so we'd like to punt this ball to next year. Now, do you think it's going to get better next year? Well, some Democrats are apparently stupid enough to believe that. So let's go to a description from The Hill about what Senator Tom Carper from Delaware is saying. They say that the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, Tom Carper, which has jurisdiction of the immigration enforcement agencies that would be affected, said Obama should wait until next year, and maybe the year after that, and maybe until he leaves office, and then he can take action. Tom Carper, profiling courage. He says, direct quote from him, if I were the president, what I'd say to the Congress, House, Senate, Democrat or Republican, I'm going to give you a little bit of time, and in the new Congress, expect you to do something. Oh, I see. He says he has basically faith in the Republicans because in the new Congress, both the House and the Senate would be controlled by Republicans, and he would allow them to give it a real college try. They haven't done immigration reform for all these years, but now that they're in charge and they're emboldened, they're more likely to do reasonable immigration reform. On which planet? After all these years and all these decades, you still have idiot Democrats. Like, oh, well, let's just give the Republicans a chance. Now, let's give them a fair chance. You know, they might be more cooperative after they're in charge. Well, okay. Now, you want us to wait till next year. You want the Republicans to take action. All right, what if we give them like a month to take action into the next year and then like, okay, February. Can we go in February? Nope. I would say not the first month, maybe the first quarter. So let's at least give them 3 more months, and then we're in April, but then in April there's going to be another excuse, and let's wait a little longer. And meanwhile, you know what we'll do? We'll lose the entire Latino vote, a vote that we'd been capturing over 70% of, but we'll hand it right back to the Republicans because we'll seem like the same kind of asses that they are. Well played, Democrats. Brilliant strategy as usual. And then, of course, a senior Republican aide, of course, is beside himself with giddiness that the Democrats have joined his cause, says, it seems Obama is rejecting the idea of finding common ground. Wait. You guys said your first action is going to be to destroy his signature legislation, Obamacare. So how is that finding common ground? No, but Republicans don't have to find common ground. The common ground they find is the end of their fist and your face. That's the common ground they find. And what do the Democrats do? They run like, let's just say, little children. Oh my God, he's going to punch me. Let's wait. Wait. Please don't do it. I believe the kids in the colloquial parlance today call that being a bitch. Okay, now let's go to the Republican strategy. House Republicans are now talking about moving a short-term funding measure that would expire early next year that would give them a chance to pass another government funding bill next year that would prohibit the expenditure of funds on work permits and processing applications for immigrants covered by the order. Now let me decipher that for you. They say, well, one thing we're considering is doing a short little fix-up here in this year, and then when we get to be in charge next year, well then we could make sure that Obama can't spend any money doing the things that he wants to do. So if you wait till next year, we'll make sure you absolutely can't ever do it. Now, they're already telling you this, and the Democrats are like, oh, yeah, man, let's go over to that wedding. It's going to be great. I hear they're going to play Raids of Castamere. There's going to be Wait a minute. I mean, every fucking time. How do you not have tremendous record-breaking disdain for the Democratic Party? And before elections, they tell us, oh, no, you don't understand. Republicans say, we do understand that. Republicans suck. We're asking you not to suck. Apparently, that's an order that's just too tall for the Democrats to fill. Well, you know what? I got a great idea. I'm going to keep on waiting. I'm going to use your strategy. I'm going to wait for you to not suck before I support you. If I was the president, what would I do? You think I'd listen to Tom Dumbass Carper? Carping on? Oh, let's wait till next year when the Republicans say on the goddamn record that they will not let us do this. No, here's what I would do as president. The next fucking day the election was over, I'd be like, hey, remember how I said I was going to do this before the end of the year and after the election? Well, guess what? It's Wednesday, the day after the election. I'm fucking doing it right now. See, that's a strong person. That's a person who takes action and commands respect. Right now, this is not on Obama yet. He hasn't, to the best of our knowledge, changed his mind. If he does, there is no hope for him ever, 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 okay? But even to hear the Democrats trying to convince him to change his mind, and he's mulling his options. Gee, I wonder why we can't get excited about the Democratic Party. I'll go on Daily Kos and have them yell at me that I'm not Democratic enough. Fuck that. Okay, let's move on to the next story. Yeah, ready for Hillary? Okay. All right, this is actually a fun story, kind of. It's about total terrible corruption, but it's a little fun. Okay, maybe it'll lighten the mood before I get angry at the next story again. Okay. So CNN has actually done an investigation, all credit to them on this, nice job on it, unearthing corruption. And now, look, we know that there's dark money that flows in the politics, hundreds of millions of dollars at a time. We know that the Supreme Court has allowed for independent expenditures and now almost unlimited money going to political parties as well. But even in the midst of this orgy of corruption and legalized bribes, apparently Republicans have found a way to do something that might be illegal. See, the one thing they're not supposed to do is to have candidates or political parties coordinate with the so-called independent expenditures. So the Supreme Court and the laws as it stands now says independent expenditures by the Koch brothers, Karl Rove, etc., the group that he organizes, Have at it, Hoss. Spend billions if you want. You just can't talk to the party or the candidate and coordinate your campaigns. It's not much of a rule. They get to do whatever they want anyway. They've already bought almost all of our politics and our government. But even that was too onerous for the Republicans, apparently. CNN has found out that Twitter accounts were hidden in plain sight, and they were using them in a coded way to communicate to one another. The profiles were publicly available, but meaningless without knowledge of how to find them and decode the information, according to a source with knowledge of the activities. So they would go, the political groups would, and say, here's a polling we did, which, by the way, is incredibly expensive. I'm going to put it on a Twitter account, okay, and then you're the only one who knows to look at it, even though it's public, and it's going to be coded, and then you'll know which direction to go in, and you'll know which way you should do the ads and how much money you should spend, etc., right? So they explain a typical tweet read CA 40/43-44/49, 44/44. You see the message here, a whole bunch of numbers. What that is it's saying California's 40th district is at 43%. Codes along those lines, where all those different districts stand in terms of polling, right? The source said posts like that, which would look like gibberish to most people, representing polling data for various House races. Okay? Now, let's talk about the law. The law says that outside groups, such as super PACs and nonprofits, can spend freely on political causes as long as they don't coordinate their plans with campaigns. Sharing costly internal polls in private, for instance, could signal to the campaign committees where to focus precious time and resources. Now, in this case, at least 2 outside groups and a Republican campaign committee had access to the information posted to the accounts, according to the source. They include American Crossroads, the super PAC founded by Karl Rove, American Action Network, a nonprofit advocacy group, and the National Republican Congressional Committee, which is the campaign arm for the House GOP. So there is a super PAC and an outside group clearly coordinating with the Republican Party, which is clearly against the law. Okay. Now, the accounts that CNN reviewed were active in the months ahead of this month's election, which gave Republicans their largest majority in the House since World War II and control of the Senate. They were live until November 3rd, but deleted minutes after CNN contacted the NRCC with questions. Okay, so why is that important? Now, their lawyers will go into court if the government ever bothers to do anything about this grotesque corruption. And their lawyers will say, oh, no, we didn't do anything illegal. We put things out in public. We didn't share it privately. I mean, Twitter's public. I don't know what you're talking about. We knew we weren't doing anything wrong. Well, if you knew you weren't doing anything wrong, why did you delete all the accounts the minute a reporter asked you about that? That's an interesting question. Well, more detail on that. The tweets captured by screenshots stretch back to July, but the groups have communicated in this manner for 4 years, the source said. Staffers for each group deleted individual tweets every few months, so only the past few months of data were available when CNN first viewed the Twitter accounts. Now, that means 2 different things happened. One, at some point, there was coordination ahead of time so that they knew which Twitter accounts to look at and what the code meant. How could you know what the code meant and know where to go if you didn't coordinate ahead of time? And point number 2 is, if you're systematically deleting all of your tweets every so often, you know you're doing something wrong. That's why you want to try to get rid of the record. Okay. Will the government take action? Well, we'll get to that in a second. Beyond coordination, the social media operation could also raise questions about whether the polling data contained in the tweets constituted a donation to the NRCC that should have been reported. The groups could have violated election rules by not reporting the information in the tweets as a donation. So they might be in violation of several different laws. I'm sure that the government's about to handcuff Karl Rove any second now. Okay. Earlier this year, for instance, the National Journal reported, and both sides do it, and this is CNN explaining that, but not what we just explained. Try to coordinate in fishy ways, okay? So Senator Jeanne Shaheen, a New Hampshire Democrat, posted what appear to be ad scripts on a website the Republicans say telegraph messages the campaign would like to see on air. So now this is the old way of doing it. This is the cheating without cheating, theoretically. So the Democrats will say, oh, look at what I left on my website. This is information that could be relevant to someone spending a lot of money in politics, like my allies, who I am not coordinating with. So that's Jeanne Shaheen, who's a Democrat. Now, we go to North Carolina. In the North Carolina Senate race this year, Republican Tom Tillis' campaign posted a detailed memo on its website specifically laying out its needs for television and digital ad buys. Now, so he takes it to a whole nother level. He says, okay, if I were to have money, these are the ad buys I would really like to do, and I have put them on my website. Oh, look at this, an independent expenditure group, without coordinating with me, did those same exact ad buys. Oh. Now, other things they put on their website led to a phenomenon now known as McConnelling. McConnell put out this video on his website that looks like an ad, but it doesn't say anything. It just has goofy music, and it has his goofy face smiling at the cameras. And people didn't know why. Here, let's show you an example of that. So why is that awkward man looking at the camera in that awfully embarrassing way? Okay, the reason he's doing it is because it allows independent expenditure groups, which are not coordinating with the McConnell campaign, to take that video from his website and use it in their ads. Now, they're not going to use the whole 5-10 seconds of him looking like an asshole. Okay, they're going to just take a second of it and go, oh, Mitch McConnell's great for Kentucky. And it's going to have a second of him going, but they're not coordinating. Now, all that stuff we already knew, but these tweets are new. And they're a whole nother level of obviously secret, coded communication that was prepared ahead of time and clearly communicating with one another and certainly coordinating. Now, is the government going to do anything about it? Well, for that, we go to CNN again. Despite the questionable nature of the Twitter communications, experts doubt that the FEC will do much to act. Members of the commission have been deadlocked along party lines for years. So the FEC, which is in charge of this Federal Election Commission, is rarely ever acts and is certainly unlikely to act here, even though this is brazen. If you don't do anything about this, you're basically saying, go ahead and coordinate. We're not enforcing the law at all. It's like saying, hey, you know what? You're not technically allowed to rob a bank, but we will never catch you. What do you think people are going to do? They're going to rob a lot of banks, right? Now, the second part of that sentence, though, gives you a sense of why the Republicans do obstruction in the first place. So they block nominations, they block judicial appointees, they block, everything they can possibly block, including legislation, et cetera. But in the case here of appointees, if you block nominees, then things get deadlocked. And the FEC, by its nature, is already deadlocked. So everything's all jammed up, and the Republicans always vote, nope, not guilty, not guilty. So now, look, as I said, some Democrats are doing milder versions of it as well. Of course, when it comes to them, they scream, not guilty, not guilty. So both sides say not guilty. You're never, ever going to get somebody enforcing this, apparently. And if you thought our politics was corrupt before, apparently it just got a little more corrupt. It's funny how if you smoke a joint, they will come down on you like a ton of bricks. That's when all of a sudden both Republicans and Democrats care about the rule of law. But when they brazenly violate the law themselves, not guilty. Sorry, there was nothing we could do. Everything's all jammed up in Washington. Okay. That was a little fun, but still angry. One more angry one. Oh my God, I'm running out of time. Okay, of course, right? Anyways, here we go. Bloomberg Businessweek had a really interesting article about high-rise and the guy who's building it. The high-rise is 157. It's in New York City, of course, and it's on 57th Street, and it's going to rise to about 90 floors. So it's going to have a great view of Central Park. Previously, they thought that that was a location that was not going to be as desirable for really high-end condominiums. Well, this guy, Gary Barnett, has done a great job through his company, Extel, of proving doubters wrong. And the heart of the article is about that. And when it comes to Gary Barnett's business acumen, I don't begrudge him that at all. I actually kind of like the story of him defying the odds. You know, he cut corners here and there and certainly pissed off a lot of people in the neighborhood. But I get it, and that's business, and you can disagree with those tactics as well. But what I found interesting in the article is a little throwaway section about taxes that they put in there, which is not a throwaway at all because it involves very, very large numbers and corruption. So They explain, along with the views of this complex that he's building, Barnett tempted buyers at 157 with something else, a tax break. In its condominium offering documents, Excel told buyers they would receive a 10-year abatement because the tower qualified for an affordable housing tax exemption. Now, strange as it sounds, the city had for years allowed developers of luxury buildings to purchase tax savings certificates from builders of actual affordable housing. The luxury developers could then use them at their shimmering towers. So this was originally for poor people, and if you want to be able to afford an apartment in New York, well, you might need some assistance in the form of a tax abatement. That makes sense. But of course, they created a scheme where it could be sold, and then rich people use it to avoid hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes every year. One example they give in this tower is somebody who was going to pay about $200,000 a year in taxes. You got to understand, some of these apartments go for $90 million for an apartment, okay? So now, instead of paying $200,000, they're only going to pay $18,000 because of this abatement. But we're going to run into some issues in a second. Now, Excel told its customers that this would be wonderful for them. The buyers of the 6-bedroom, 6-bathroom penthouse duplex on the 89th and 90th floors, for example, would see their annual real estate taxes fall in the first year from $205,883 to $18,415. So, boom, you just saved, what, over $180,000 there. Well over that, okay? For the richest people in the city, literally, okay? Now, when asked to justify this, Gary Barnett says, now, wait a minute, you don't want to discriminate. I love this quote. He says, America has always been a very welcoming country. We welcome the poor and the downtrodden, but we also welcome the wealthy. Well, indeed you do. Indeed you do. Part of the reason he says that is because a lot of these apartment buildings are being bought by foreigners, Russians, Saudis, Chinese. Some of them are doing it as an investment. Some are doing it for the couple of weeks a year that they stop in New York. And a lot of them are empty, so it's foreigners, but the wealthiest foreigners in the world coming and buying these apartment complexes, okay, or condominiums. Now, his detractors, here's another twist you're going to love, were up in arms again in August when the city gave Excel permission to create a building with a separate entrance for affordable housing residents in an Upper West Side complex he's constructing. The anti-Excel forces call it a poor door. Now, according to the laws, in some of these buildings, you have to have affordable housing as well as the incredibly non-affordable housing, right? Now, that's a problem for the rich because they don't want to rub elbows with you. They don't want to have anything to do with you. So Barnett solves that problem, and he's not the only one, by the way. Trump and others do it as well, by creating a separate door and saying, if you live in the affordable housing part, you must enter through that door. You cannot enter through the door that brings you into the same building, but that's reserved for only rich people. If you thought the elites had not run amok yet, okay, I mean, I don't know that there's a better example than this. So speaking of which, we go to Donald Trump, and he thinks this is a lovely idea. He says, your luxury people would prefer that. It's no big secret. Whether it's politically correct, I couldn't care less. Your luxury people would prefer that. I'm sorry for being so unluxury. Well, now here's where the story takes a twist. Bloomberg Businessweek explains there was only one problem. Barnett says he was stunned to discover after he'd begun selling units that the abatements no longer applied. They had been phased out in 2007 as part of an effort by then Mayor Michael Bloomberg to end the subsidies in many parts of the city where the real estate market was booming. So now these tax credits, basically, they have to get renewed every once in a while. They ran out in 2007. Bloomberg was the mayor at the time. Bloomberg Businessweek is owned by him, but it has nothing to do with one another. So understand that this is a report coming from Bloomberg Businessweek, not Mayor Bloomberg himself. Now, in that case, I don't know that Mayor Bloomberg deserves any credit. They just simply ran out, and they were not renewed. So maybe credit for not renewing them. Okay, so, hey, don't worry about it. You still got the poor door, but at least they're not going to avoid all those taxes which, by the way, would go to help educate New York City children, help with transportation and all those other things, right? And obviously these guys could afford those, right? So problem solved. That's not the way America works. So if one politician didn't do it for you, you just go bribe another one. These bribes are perfectly legal. What you do is you say, I'm going to give you a campaign donation, and then I'll see if you reinstitute that tax credit for me. So let's see what happened here. In January of 2013, Governor Andrew Cuomo, a so-called Democrat, by the way, signed a bill that reestablished them at 157 and the luxury buildings of 4 other developers. He did so shortly after his re-election campaign committee deposited 2 checks totaling $100,000 from companies sharing addresses with Extel affiliates. Get a load of how sickening that corruption is. He does the tax credits for only 5 buildings, some of which are owned by Extel, which just gave him $100,000 in campaign donations. Is that clear enough? No. These are perfectly legal. We're told that these are not bribes, that those 2 things are totally unrelated. He just happened to pick 5 buildings in New York. They happen to be owned by the people who gave him the $100,000. What a wonderful coincidence. The combination of very large campaign contributions. Now, look, this is the Moreland Commission report. Cuomo said, do a commission, investigate corruption. You can investigate me as well. And they concluded, the combination of very large campaign contributions and very narrowly targeted benefits to those same donors creates an appearance of impropriety that undermines public trust in our elected representatives. So Cuomo sees this from the Moreland Commission and he goes, oh, that's really interesting. And then, quote, in March, Cuomo disbanded the Moreland Commission, insisting it was no longer needed. You see, his donors came in through the rich door. They were the luxury people, and they deserved those tax breaks. Now, those tax breaks, we did a rough calculation here, and I invite reporters in New York to do a more meticulous calculation. But based on the numbers provided by Bloomberg Businessweek, multiplied by the number of apartment condos that there are in those 5 buildings, it appears that these tax credits could cost New York City about $100 million a year. And this law goes for 10 years, and then you'll have to see if they renew it or not. But let's just take those 10 years. 100 million times 10 is about $1 billion. So a $100,000 donation to a politician gets you a return of about $1 billion. This is the current state of American politics, where anything can be bought. Corruption has become systemic. It has taken over the body politic, and it is treated as regular course of affairs. And if anyone dares investigate it, it immediately gets shut down. You wonder why we started Wolfpack. This is among the reasons why. You go to wolf-pack.com and you figure out how to fight back against these guys. Nobody's going to poor door us. We're going to come through their door, but it ain't going to be through the poor door. wolf-pack.com. That was a segment from hour 1 of the show.
Now for the better hour, the second hour.
Drums. You can get the whole show on TYT-network.com. All right, back on the Young Turks. Anna's here. We've got some great stories for you guys. As usual, I'll read a couple of quick tweets for you. Michael Gibb, you were so close with your tweet here. He says, quote, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. On arrival, they become second-class citizens. Michael, I thought you should have finished it with, give me your tired, your poor, and I'll make them walk through a poor door. Right? I mean, they've got fucking poor doors in New York now. Jesus Christ, man. It's okay. They walk through the poor door and then they let them eat cake. Okay. There was a lot of tweets about Glenn Beck's doctor. Prince of Pun says, was it Keith Abloh that diagnosed Glenn Beck's thing? And then Audra Sparks made the same joke somebody here made, but I don't watch the show, so I didn't understand it. His doctor is Dr. Nick? Which show is Dr. Nick from? Simpsons, okay. Jeremy, yeah, right, okay, he does that, whatever that is. Jeremy Varner, Glenn Beck says he didn't have any REM sleep in a decade. That would drive someone insane. Oh. Okay, sorry. No, that's not nice. Okay, we wish Glenn speedy recovery. Round and round he goes. He's become a doner kebab. Anyway, I'm a bad guy. I'm going to say one last thing about Glenn Beck for no reason. You know the Joe Concha thing from yesterday? You know, Joe Concha says Cenk Uyghur's a bad guy. We still have not determined who Joe Concha is. Mm-hmm. Okay, we should do 2 things in regards to that. Well, he should be the new Mike Jones. I say Joe Concha, you guys say who? Second of all, by the way, Joe Concha has never been mentioned more in the media than he has on this show. Like, congratulations. If you were screaming for relevance, we gave you a little bit of it there. Okay. Second of all, I want to do the same trick Mediaite does. Just pick someone random and say, like, give him quotes. And I was thinking of who should do it, who we should pick in the studio. I was thinking Jesus, but Jesus is probably much more famous than Joe Concha is. So I was thinking of Bart, but Bart might be more famous than Joe Concha. Nice, see? Everyone's already getting it. So I decided we're going to go with Ben Tannen. Okay. And Ben has a good name. He's behind the scenes. He's very important to the show, but you've never seen him, right, on camera. But for every once in a while, we'll be like, Ben Tannen says Republicans are wrong. Ben Tannen says Glenn Beck is totally wrong and Jake is right. I don't know why that's relevant, but he said it. He said it, okay? It's a fun trick. Okay. Ben, congratulations. You're now more famous than Joe Concha. All right, just a little bit of fun. All right, Anna. Get me in a better mood. I was mad the first hour.
I need someone to get my ass in a better mood.
Okay, we'll do it. Anyway. We'll do it together. We'll do it live.
The woman behind the drunk video where she is asking for help and guys are allegedly going after her and taking advantage of her has now come out and confirmed further that that video was a hoax. Now she's upset because she says that she was tricked into being part of that video as well. Her name is Jennifer Box, and hear what she has to say.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Box, but you probably know me as Drunk Girl in Public on Hollywood Boulevard. I was hired as an actress to portray a drunk girl in what was described to me as a lighthearted prank show. Had I known the damaging outcome of this video, I never would have participated. And for the record, every male seen in this video were nothing but perfect gentlemen. So from the bottom of my heart, I am very, very sorry for my participation in this production and any harm it may have caused. Thank you.
Okay, now I feel bad about that because she's an actress, right? And they used her like they used everybody else. She probably got a ton of grief.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
I'm sure people went after her with death threats and everything. You know how the internet is, especially after you find out that the entire thing was a lie. It was a setup. The guys that were involved had no idea that this was supposed to be part of a social experiment. It was all staged. They thought that this was them acting. It was supposed to be like a comedy skit.
I also feel bad for her because I said she was an awful actress in that video. But she kind of was.
Why would you feel bad about that? That was a fair critique of her performance.
It was. Like, whenever you see her in person, and then she's going to have to, like, do this apology and be like, I'm so sorry, please don't hate me. You can't feel but feel a little bad for her. But it was not the best acting performance we've seen in a while. And that's part of why we knew it was fake before it was announced that it was fake.
Right. So what is the update on the two assholes behind that video? I'll let you know. So Steven Zhang is one of those guys who's a 20-year-old, and also Seth Leach is a 22-year-old who is behind it. They're considered viral marketers. Leach has deleted his Twitter and Facebook accounts since the hoax was exposed. Zhang's channel, where the video was posted, has been wiped clean and renamed Video Productions, and the original video is now private. It had been viewed 11.5 million times, which is insane.
So I'm amused by this because Leach, at the time, had given the quotes like, "We're famous now, man. We're going viral. We're going to Hollywood."
No, you're going to disappear.
Yeah, instead, poof, disappears off the face of the earth because he's so, like, struck by what happened, right?
Yeah.
And then, but you know, now that I know their age, I also feel bad for them. I'm such a lib. Right?
Well, they're kids.
They're kids. They're 20 and 22. They thought they were going to be famous. They thought they were doing something clever, and it blew up in their face.
Yeah, it's not like, look, I'm not giving them a pass. What they did was stupid, and they made a gross generalization about all men, right? Every guy in that video tried to take advantage of a drunk girl. So they were trying to do social commentary, and they staged the whole thing, which is terrible. But at the same time, I think about who I was at 20, and even though I wasn't that stupid, I was pretty stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. Believe me, I was 20.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, I remember you at 20 and you were stupid.
No, back then I was a Republican. I was religious. I mean, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
I was 20 when you put my ass on air. That's how desperate you guys were. I was in the right place at the right time.
Well, God bless. You played it well, so and you earned it.
Yeah.
So now, in the case of these guys, I had checked out Steve Zhang's channel, and because it said he was a viral marketer.
Yeah.
I was like, really? So let me check out his YouTube channel at the time when it was still up. And it had like 7 views. Until this video, it had like 4 other videos that had gotten like a couple of hundred views, and that was it. And I was like, oh, Mr. Viral Marketer. Okay. Now, having said all this, look, they're in hiding. They're in a cave in Kandahar. Okay. And everybody's apologized. Let's wrap this thing up.
Yeah.
Okay. Because the internet can get carried away, right? So, Mr. Internet, wrap it up.
Wrap it up. All right. Let's move on. Adrian Peterson has been suspended by the NFL for the rest of the 2014 season, and he's been suspended without pay. This is actually really big news. I don't think Adrian Peterson was exactly expecting this to happen. Now, according to reports, the Huffington Post to be specific, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell explained the suspension in a letter to Peterson, writing that he has shown no meaningful remorse and that his reinstatement will be based on the results on the counseling or of the counseling and treatment program set forth in this decision. Moreover, Goodell says, it appears that this is not the first time that you have punished children in this way. Public statements attributed to you indicate that you believe that this kind of discipline is appropriate and you do not intend to stop disciplining your children this way. Now, the union representing NFL players has also released a statement. Adrian Peterson plans to appeal this decision, but I think that they actually make a fair point, right? Now, do I agree with him being suspended for hitting his 4-year-old son with a switch to the point where he's bleeding? Yeah, he should have been suspended. However, as the union says, the NFL has not been consistent on issues regarding domestic violence. So they're saying, well, what exactly is your policy? Because if you look at past instances, you guys have covered up cases of domestic violence. There was a story we didn't get to this week where the New York Times revealed that in a lot of cases, the NFL is in cahoots with local authorities. Local authorities will work for the NFL or local teams, and as a result, they'll look out for the players who are in the middle of a domestic dispute.
Now, the NFL would then turn around and say, yeah, well, we're trying to make a clean break from that and get better going forward, and this is how we get better. Now, so that seems like a bit of a controversy, so let's drop it.
Let's do it.
Okay, nobody told you that we're going to drop it.
It's all right. We'll do it live. We'll do it live. What does it mean to play us out?
I'm going to start off festivities here with Justice Jackson, who might have a bit of a controversial opinion.
We're wondering if he should be suspended for the rest of the season?
Yes.
Sure. I mean, that's the NFL's decision because they're worried about their product, and this has been flooding their, since the beginning of the season, it's been flooding their season. So that's fine. They're a company. They can suspend employees, I guess, in a way, even though he's actually an employee of the Vikings. But, yeah, sure, why not? The other thing is though, I don't really see any... I don't think Roger Goodell cares about the remorse. You don't seem remorseful about beating your kid, so I'm going to suspend you. That has nothing to do with anything. What he's worried about is how this looks for his company, which is his only job, honestly. Right. So that's why he's doing it. So I'm calling bullshit on that. Because in reality, after that, they need to face whatever charges or disciplinary action they should take with life, with law enforcement, with criminal charges, all that stuff. Once that happens, I think as long as the team will hire them, they should be playing next year. I mean, sit them out for your PR reasons, sure, it's your decision. But then after that, if they need to take care of their personal lives, and if you really wished he would do something different with his kid and he had some remorse, you get him some help. Because it happened to him as a kid, that's how the cycle of violence happens. If you want him to get some help him get some help.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say reinstate him. Okay, Chief Justice, what's your thoughts here?
I'm totally fine with him getting suspended. I mean, but like the player associations, like, what is your stand on all this violence, domestic violence? So it's kind of like the line's very blurred. I'm happy they suspended him. Yeah, I'm a little more torn. Look, so on the one hand, I understand what Adrian Peterson's lawyers are saying. Like, really, we had a clear policy on
what you considered normal spanking and what you considered child abuse, and who was going to get suspended for that. Yeah, I'm not really buying that policy was altogether that clear when they started punishing Adrian Peterson, right? So, on the other hand, it appears that Adrian Peterson, from the outside, if there's new evidence that shows otherwise, I'm very open to hearing that. It appears that Peterson's saying, like, nah, not buying that. This is how I discipline my kids.
That's true.
Right.
He pleaded no contest to the charges against him. He's facing criminal charges.
Right.
I agree with the suspension. I know you didn't ask me, but I'm going to go ahead and share my opinion.
Okay, I wasn't done, but go ahead. All right.
No, you
Of
go
course
ahead.
I was going to ask you. Okay, what are we? How can we have an official vote without asking? All right, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that I didn't agree with JR until he actually laid it out the way that he did, and it's true. I mean, with every crime, there's a punishment. You serve the punishment, and then you should be able to move on with your life. So I agree with the suspension, and they should be able to reinstate him after he serves his time and after this season.
Yeah, I would have voted to reinstate him immediately, and not just because he's on my fantasy football team, but because I don't think the policy was that clear. And I would make it clear, and he's already served a long, long sentence here, right? It's cost him a tremendous amount of money, and it should have. Like beating your kids with a switch and cutting their back, and hitting them in the genitals, accidentally or otherwise. I mean, whipping your kids until you take skin off. That's a serious offense, and we've talked about that before. But we're going to be unanimous because you can't go to the NFL and say, I don't give a damn about your policy. I'm going to keep beating my kids. Then they can't let you back in the league. Like if you want to do an act of principle on that and you think that's really important and you're going to stand up for your principles, okay, I don't agree with your principles, but I guess I respect that you think you have those and you're going to stand up for them and it's going to cost you millions of dollars, but then you can't complain they didn't put you back in the league because you're not following their rules.
Exactly.
So 4-0. Sorry, Adrian. And sorry, Jank. He's not going to come back this year, and you're going to have to start other running backs.
All right.
Okay.
The Miami Marlins have signed a new player, and it's for a record amount of money. The player is Giancarlo Stanton, and he has signed a record 13-year, $325 million contract.
Jesus Christ,
okay,
man.
It's insane. All right, so by the way, he's not considered a five-tool player, okay? He's not necessarily very fast. However, he has been known to hit a bunch of homers, okay? Just this last season.
I love how Anna.
Give me some fucking credit. Give me some fucking credit.
She tries so hard. She tries so hard in the sports stories. Okay, and now the five-star player. That's actually
Five-tool.
whatever the hell
right.
it is.
Get it
okay,
right.
nobody even knows what that is.
People know.
Okay,
People know.
Okay, and then you were so close. He's been known to hit a lot of homers.
He has.
Okay.
37
I
in the
know.
last season. And remember, he got hit in the fucking face with a baseball when he was up to bat. And so he had to, take some time off for that.
Yeah,
I
would take some time off too. Especially if I was getting paid $325 million. I'd take a lot of time off. Okay, or maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I'd work harder. So, okay, I just find this outrageous. First of all, I find it outrageous that anybody still watches baseball. Okay, are there going to be 325 million people who watch him in his entire career? I'm not sure. I mean, accumulated over all of his games, right? So that's just one player on one team. I can't believe baseball still has that much money. I can't believe it.
Yeah,
the games last 28 days apiece. Now, this is not a hyperbole, because now you're going to think it is. There's 162 games a year. Okay? My God. And now, look, that's part of the reason why they make more money, because then that's more tickets you sell, more television rights. I get that.
Quantity over quality.
Yeah, that's what I think it is.
Although I like baseball. Baseball's cool.
Yeah, it's barely hanging in there, but they're still making an unbelievable amount of money.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because he has signed a contract larger than A-Rod's contract. The last contract that had the record was A-Rod's contract at I believe, $275 million was a 10-year contract. Now, here's an interesting part of the story. The Miami Marlins, they haven't made it to the finals. It's called the finals, right? Since 2003, the playoffs. Just shut up. I'm doing my best.
Okay.
They haven't made it to the playoffs since 2003. They're kind of, shitty. And so as a result, in 2014, Miami's payroll was only $52.3 million, and a lot of players were upset about it. So now it's kind of crazy that out of nowhere they're coming out with this player who's getting paid $325 million for this 13-year contract.
So he would, in essence, be half of their payroll, because their payroll was 52 and he's making $25 million a year. Now, Miguel Cabrera also jumped in between Rodriguez and him and got a $292 million contract. It was also over 10 years. So if you're, the bottom line of this story, first of all, hey, look, that's a free market, man. God bless. Don't get me wrong. I got nothing wrong with that. He wants to make his money. People want to watch him. Have at it, Hoss. I would go ahead and tax the rich, but that's a whole different story. But the real bottom line I get out of this is, now I understand why JR is teaching Wyatt baseball. I was wondering what was going on. Now I know what's going on. I wonder if when our kids get old enough to play, if baseball will still exist. But if it does, it's a fairly logical way to go. I mean, you can go with football, which I love, but could leave you brain damaged. Or you go to baseball, and even if you get hit in the face, you're still going to get $325 million.
You can play baseball till you're like 45 years old. I mean, you can keep
That's right, because
money.
it doesn't require any athleticism.
Oh, my God. Yes, it does.
Okay, I present to you John Kruk as Exhibit A. I rest my case.
There are plenty of baseball players that have great bodies.
We know, you're blah, 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 my boyfriend. Oh, yeah, okay. Now, what is it here?
No, don't do it.
Why don't you go out with this dude?
I mean,
man, I have him invest in TYT.
All right, let's move on. I would.
Good for him. All right.
Anyway, moving on. An Uber executive has been caught making some pretty questionable statements about journalists. In fact, he made a statement over dinner with some pretty top people, like celebrities and stuff, about how he wants to go after journalists that have been critical of Uber. Now, this is Emil Michael. He is the senior VP of business for Uber, and apparently he was having this fancy dinner with people like Ed Norton and Ariana Huffington. And during the dinner, here's what he had to say. He outlined the notion of spending $1 million to hire 4 top opposition researchers and 4 journalists. The team could, he said, help Uber fight back against the press. They'd look into your personal lives, your families, and give the media a taste of its own medicine. Now, BuzzFeed, of course, reported on this. That was a really bad idea. Michael was particularly focused on one journalist, a woman by the name of Sarah Lacy, the editor of the Silicon Valley website Pando Daily, a sometimes combative voice inside the industry. Lacy recently accused Uber of sexism and misogyny. Yeah.
Okay, so this story goes in a lot of different directions, so let's take all the twists and turns. First of all, I don't agree with Sarah Lacy. I like some of the work that Pando Daily has done overall, especially when they had David Sirota over there. They were doing some great work in exposing corruption. The idea here is that Uber sometimes has French escort service that's sometimes transported. So what? I mean, like what, hookers don't go in cabs? So like Uber has to be responsible for... I just didn't understand. I don't care about that point at all. Okay, and what business is it of yours? It's not sexist that people want to use a escort service, French or otherwise. So I don't agree with her criticism in that, although she's done good work otherwise. Okay, so now going after journalists is a terrible idea. So then we flip back to the Uber executive being totally wrong in his crowd of top people, as you put it. And he thought it was off the record. He's like, look, I thought we all, are all buddies here.
We're
talking
having dinner.
Yeah, and we're talking about how we're going to eliminate people who are opposed to us, etc. Okay, but apparently they never clarified that it was off the record. So BuzzFeed's like, on the record now.
Yeah.
Okay, so my guess is he's not happy about that.
Of course.
Might want to hire some people to go after BuzzFeed now.
Those are some of the top people that he's not going to be dining with in the future.
No.
Right.
So of course don't go after the journalists. Of course that's ridiculous. And so he's justifiably in trouble here. But one more twist. If he had directed his ire at the right people, I might kind of like it.
If he was a journalist who is directing this type of investigation toward politicians, I feel like it would be different, kind of like how Larry Flynt did. Remember, he offered $1 million during the last presidential election to basically dig up dirt on any of these family values politicians. And that was a great idea, because if they are working for us and representing us as the American people, and they're running on a platform regarding American values, then we should know what they're doing in their personal lives, especially if they're having a salacious sex affair.
Right. Well, and then speaking of that, if I was Elliot Spitzer, and there's a lot of examples you could use, but that was a very prominent one, right? Mm-hmm. And somebody went and investigated my sex life. Mm-hmm. I'd want to know who it was that investigated my sex life, and then I'd want to know about his sex life.
Right.
Okay. Now, if you got the resources for that, would I hire people and spend $1 million to say, "Oh, you want to come at me? Well, here's how I roll. I'm gonna come right back at you," right? That would make a lot of sense, and that kind of vindictive attitude would be refreshing in that context. But you can't do it to reporters. That seems petty, and it almost proves them right. When in this case, I didn't even think they were right in the first place.
Right.
But now you're going to go investigate their lives for doing reporting on you or having an opinion on you. That's really stupid.
Right. Now, what's really interesting is people warned him that maybe this isn't a good idea. Go to graphic 10. At the Waverly Inn dinner, it was suggested that a plan like this one Michael floated could become a problem for Uber, and apparently he responded back, "Nobody would know it was us." And then later on, after BuzzFeed reported on this story, that was a bad idea, dude. That was a bad idea. After this story was reported, of course, he became very remorseful. Graphic number 13A. The remarks attributed to me at a private dinner born out of frustration during an informal debate over what I feel is sensationalistic media coverage of the company I am proud to work for do not reflect my actual views and have no relation to the company's views or approach. They were wrong no matter the circumstance, and I regret them.
It's funny how in private people are tough guys. Like, "Oh, I'm going to get people, I'm going to investigate their lives, I'm coming for you," right?
Right.
And then once it's public, "Oh, I'm really simple, I didn't quite mean it that way, I'm just saying,
I regret it, I'm sorry. Just saying, I'm sorry. That was just my mistake and my bad. I'm sorry."
Okay. So then that's what happens.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, you want to take a break?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's take a break.
Let's take a quick break here. Come back and roll again.
You liked that, didn't you?
Well, if you like that, you'll love the whole show. TYTnetwork.com. Get the whole show as a member.